name is Vicki Townsend, and I'm the founder and president of Divorce Right. And we provide training for HR professionals and company supervisors. And we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing the guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through it, but to the company they work for. And our coaches have a unique perspective on divorce that sets us apart. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce, and they can handle even the highest conflict cases with compassion and professionalism. Our coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based on their goals and their expectations. So, if you're an HR benefits manager or an HR benefits provider or consultant, please reach out to us and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we'll be posting a link at the end of this broadcast so that you can be sure to grab those. And normally I would have my friend Paulette Rigo. She is also my colleague here at Divorce Right. But something happened today with one of her clients that she ended up getting called into an emergency hearing. So the reason that I wanted to share that with you is to let you know that that's the kind of effort that we put in to your employees. If they need us at their courtroom, we will be there and stand beside them and lock arms with them. So make sure you reach out to us and let us know. And today we're going to be talking about anxiety. It is a side effect of divorce and it impacts your employees at their work. And today we're going to be giving you some tips to help them manage it with our very special guest and my lifelong friend, Stephanie D'Alfonso. So let me tell you a little bit about Stephanie. Stephanie D'Alfonso is an anxiety expert. She's an integrative hypnotist, speaker, and author. Our traditional approaches to stress, anxiety, and sleep issues are no longer enough. And because of her own struggles with anxiety and sleep issues, Stephanie has spent over 20 years researching anxiety and how it affects every part of our life. She has compiled 35 of the techniques in her book, Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom, which I happen to have bought for both of my kids several years back. And it has been a huge benefit to them. She teaches resilience as a skill that can be learned, practiced, and incorporated into daily living. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, Vicki, when you say lifelong, I mean, you and I have been for a very long time. And it's a testament to technology and social media that through the geographical distances, we're still here. It's awesome. It's awesome.
I'm so happy to have you here because that book that you wrote is easy to read. It is filled with amazing ideas, thoughts, and techniques, tips to get past anxiety. And speaking of anxiety, divorce is nothing but a big old ball of anxiety. I say that divorce is uncertainty, and that uncertainty shows up in a very anxious way. So to start us off, Steph, how can HR managers identify their employees who may be struggling with anxiety? What does that look like?
So first of all, I really think that it comes down to looking in the mirror because we have to take care of our emotions and learn how to manage our emotions and learn how to respond to whatever's going on instead of react. Because as we said before we started live, you know, you and I both, our kids are about the same age, you know, like we've been through, you know, these parallel lives, and we were not taught as kids how to deal with our emotions. So were we able to teach our kids? No, right? And so now they're like, oh my gosh, you know, what do I do? And they're facing much more challenging issues now. So even when I'm working with young kids, I'm always telling the parents, you know, put the oxygen mask on first. So I would invite any HR professionals that are listening today to, be thinking about your employees, but let's back it all the way up and say, all right, if the oxygen masks come down, well, folks, they have. So let's put your oxygen mask on, because when you learn how to manage your emotions, then you can much more easily help your employees. And I was thinking about this. I take daily walks every morning out in nature. And I was thinking about this morning, and that, just because I wrote this book, Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom, does not mean I don't ever experience anxiety. All right. I really want to make that clear, because it's not like, oh, okay, read my book and poof, you're never going to experience anxiety again. However, when you have these different techniques in your pocket ready to go, regardless of what's going on around you, that you can find your center and balance. That's the trick and the key, I think, to really living a joyful life, no matter what's going on around you. Because when you, again, talking specifically to the HR managers, when you have employees, first of all, we're all stressed out, right? We're all having more anxiety than at
I
any
would
other
probably
time.
have asked, yeah, I should probably have asked you, what does it look like when they're not suffering from anxiety? Because I think that that's something that we can all
Well,
agree
yeah,
on.
because everybody is. But then you would know the stats on this much better than I do, Vicky. But I think that divorce has to be one of the top 5 or top 3 stressors. Yeah.
Number 2, and I'll tell you, the only thing that tops that on that scale is the death of a spouse. And I want to, with the death of a spouse, at least there's closure. And I know that sounds very cold,
No, 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 no.
right?
I
But
didn't take
but
this
there's
cold.
closure there. And divorce can last, days, weeks, months,
Decades.
years, and decades, particularly those that have small children. You're going to be dealing with somebody that you no longer want in your life for a very long time. And
Right.
there's so many games. Yes. So you're absolutely right. So what does that look like? So how does somebody that's facing, anxiety, what does that look like?
It is chunking it down to very small, simple shifts. The reason I have 35 techniques in the book is not because I think you have to learn all 35. It's because one size doesn't fit all. We know this, right? None of us can wear one size fits all clothing, right? And so if I only learned, now the very first technique I learned back in the 90s when I was struggling with insomnia, and oh, surprise, the doctor said, well, that's because of your anxiety. And I was like, what? I did not realize I had spent the first half of my life struggling with anxiety. I just thought it was normal to walk around with my shoulders up like earrings. So then I, started researching, and I learned EFT. A lot of people know it now as tapping, right? I learned that, and it was phenomenal. But if that's all I knew, there were people I would not be able to help over the years, because that tapping, first of all, it's a little too weird. And well, that didn't really do anything for me. So I kept researching all these different strategies, because all you have to do, the book you can see is really thin, and it's thin for a reason. Because if I hand you, I won't reach up, but I have a book on my shelf that I ordered that's almost 600 pages. I've never opened the book, and that's why my book is so thin, because if you're already anxious and I hand you a 4 or 5, 600-page book, you're
Yeah.
going to go into even more. So instead, pick
Gotcha.
2 or 3 of the techniques and practice them again and again and again. And so for an HR manager who is not going through a divorce, but still just that position has a lot of stress, and a lot more stress these days than even say 5 years ago. Learn some of these strategies for yourself first. So then when your employee who is having, oh, hi, Benita, so wonderful to have you join us today. Thank you. So when you have an employee who is losing it because of all these additional stresses of going through a divorce, or coming out of the divorce and still having the repercussions, when you can manage yours, right? So instead of you already feeling stressed and then they come in and you don't want to have to deal with their issues, when you can, oh, okay, one real simple technique, and this is not in the book, but it's just it. You're dealing with an employee who comes in and they're stressed out, and oh my gosh, if you start talking, you lower your voice a little bit and you just start talking a little bit slower and you slow your breathing. It's called pacing and leading. And so, first responders do this as well. You come upon somebody and they're so upset and you start talking to them, you slow the cadence down, you slow your voice down, you slow your breathing down, and you're unconsciously training them to follow you. And so it's a simple strategy that when your employee comes into your office and they're losing it, you're just very simple. You're not saying, well, let me get this book out and tell you about this technique. It's just, right? It's just, let me lead you to a calmer place where now we can have a more productive conversation.
I love that. I do.
Well, and it is all about these simple shifts. I have said, if I had a dime for every time I've said, simple shifts are what create lasting change. But that's it, because, our society, first of all, we're that microwave society. We want that. I want to press a button and it's good. But also, we think that change has to be hard, that if it's not hard and we don't have to really sweat through it, it's not worth it. And my experience is exactly the opposite. That when we learn these simple techniques and we start actioning them again and again and again, I'll reach over here, sorry, but I've had this on my wall for years. It says short moments of calm many times an hour. And you can see an hour got scratched out 3 years ago when the pandemic hit. I was like, not short moments of calm many times a day. It's many times an hour. Because when we offload that stress throughout the day, then it gives us a chance to keep more of that balance and be responding instead of reacting.
Right. And just kind of letting some of the temperature out, right? And to just consistently letting go some of the stress as opposed to holding on to it until you have this big old, as my mother would call it, a big old come apart. Right.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, it can make a big difference between, I guess that valve of release and things like, those types of things. So I love that you're giving a tip to HR managers. Is there anything else that you can give an HR manager that has somebody walk in to, I love the slow your cadence, because I actually was talking to somebody about that just yesterday. So believe it or not, in a sales conversation. So it can be very valuable in a lot of different settings because it does set the pace and the tone.
Yeah, and it's modeling what we want the other person to do without on a conscious level saying, okay, now I want you to do this. But if you do want to take it that extra step where it's not quite so subtle, it can be as simple as, this is how I love to start all my sessions with clients. I set my timer for 1 minute and we have a good minute. Like, I'm not saying, let's do a minute of meditation, or it has to look like this or has to look like this. It's, hey, whatever that good minute is to you. And if you start your meeting that way and just say, you know what, let's just have a good minute. We can let go of whatever was going on before, whatever's going to happen later, and just come into this moment. When you take that good minute, and I have no surprise to anybody who knows me, I have my little thing to set to it like a Zen bell chime that just goes ting ever so gently to signal the end of the good minute. But when we get that good minute, now we've landed in the moment, and now we can have a more productive conversation with that employee, as opposed to, they come in like this. Where do you go with that? It's really hard to have a conversation with somebody who is in that extreme react mode. And for Pete's sake, I don't know. You and I know a lot of people who have been divorced. I don't know anybody who said, oh yeah, it was a breeze, right? It's not.
Right. Yeah, no, it rarely happens. And if it does, there's something else going on there.
Yeah, there might be a little something behind the curtain there.
Yeah. Divorce is filled with nothing but anxiety. If it's filled with anything, that would be the number one. So I love that. So there's two strategies there already for the HR manager. So why don't you, let's open your book. Why don't you just flip to a page and let's talk about something fabulous that are some, there we go.
Okay.
Let's just and open up a page and let's talk about some of your tips and techniques.
Okay. One of my favorite breath techniques to teach, because it's one of my clients' favorites, is called square breathing. And you may have heard of it. You may have learned about it in a yoga class. You may have heard it as box breathing. Even if you already know this, I'm going to invite you to come to this with a beginner's mind, because I used to be like, yeah, I know that. And I realized I was missing out on subtle nuances. So even if you've already experienced square breathing, play with us anyway, because you might find, oh, this is a little better than I thought it might be. And literally, I've said on many shows like this, oh, this is one of my clients' favorite. My husband was watching, Michael, who you know, was watching one time, and he came downstairs and he goes, that's my favorite breath technique you teach as well. So it's so simple. It's called square breathing because we're breathing around a square, and you can trace it like I'm doing. I'll do it in the air just to show you, but you can trace it on a desk or a tabletop in front of you, or this is brilliant. If you're at a desk or you're at a conference table, you can trace it on your leg. Nobody knows what you're doing. So breathe with me. As we breathe across the top, we're going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And you can continue this. You can do this, as long or as short as you want. But it is this beautiful process where, I don't know, for my entire life until I learned this, my breath pattern was inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Now we're introducing that hold, and there's a specific reason for it. So, I am one of those geeky people now. You talk about research, I'd be like, I don't want to know about it. But now, I know about the research, and it's like, let me share that. So the reason this works so well is there's that pattern interrupt of holding your breath, but also when we do that, we're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is like a cozy down blanket. That's the rest, digest, and relax nervous system. So by doing this, and again, it's not something, you're not sitting at a meeting and tracing a square in the air, but you can just focus on your breath and do that without it being something where somebody's going to be like, oh, what are you doing? So whether you are the employee or the HR manager, you can do this square breathing. Ideally, I would love to see HR managers who know these techniques, who learn these techniques, and then do them with all the employees so that it's a norm where, okay, somebody's getting really stressed and anxious, or they come in and they're like, oh my gosh, you can just really, remember we talked about the square breathing? How if we just do that for a couple of rounds and calm everything down? Right? So it's really, this is why there's all the different techniques, because it's like a smorgasbord. Like, here's all these different techniques. Now let's find which are the ones that are going to work best for you, that you can just keep in your pocket. So no matter what's going on, if you wait, and this is why I'm like, you have to do these, you have to practice and take action, but none of it, it's not like, I'm not saying, meditate for 20 minutes in the morning and meditate again 20 minutes in the evening. That was how I was introduced to meditation. I was like, nope, I'm out of here, right? But to take a couple of, what did that take? Less than a minute to do 2 rounds of the square breathing? It's so simple. So from an HR manager's perspective, it's, again, put your oxygen mask on, learn some of these techniques, because, hopefully you're not going through a divorce, but even if you're not, you're still having anxiety just because of the world we live in. So when you learn to put your oxygen mask on, first of all, you now will be coming to an anxious employee without you being anxious and hyped up and ready to react, and you'll be able to better respond to them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I love that you have the science behind that too, with the sympathetic nervous system. What are some others? I love that you had the research. So give us a couple more that are really I know
Okay.
I did that because now
Okay.
I'm gonna do it.
Okay, and that was intentional. It's not because I didn't get a good night's sleep. It's not because I'm bored. It's literally one of the techniques is to yawn. Yeah, see?
I
I
can't do it. I can't do it. I
I
tried not
love it.
to. I can't.
I love it. And it's so funny because when I'm working with my clients, they almost always are like trying to hide the yawn. And I'm like, oh no, let it out. Because when we yawn, it's also stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. And what's really cool about this, we don't have time for me to do this exercise, which will really, I do it with clients to help them really understand what I'm about to say. But our subconscious mind, which is where our power is, our subconscious mind is like 95% of our brain. So our conscious mind that we think knows, oh yeah, it's got it going on, it's only about 5%. So when we yawn, whether it's an involuntary yawn like you did because you saw me yawning,
I
or
want to do it again. I'm trying really hard not to do it again because we were talking about it.
but it's good for you,
Yeah,
Vicky. It's
it is.
good for you because whether it's a real yawn or a fake yawn, like I'm doing, the same thing happens. It stimulates the vagus nerve, which there's been so much talk about that the last several years. And really doing research on it. Bottom line, it's the biggest, longest nerve in our body. It goes from our brain down to our belly and circles all of our internal organs, stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. So,
Mhm.
how simple is that? Latest statistics I see are that just overall, general population, one third of Americans get less than 6 hours of sleep a night. Add into that, I would say, okay, then we need to have some more conversations offline, my friend.
I still have your meditation. Yeah.
But so add into that, if you're going through an incredibly contentious divorce, you're probably getting even less sleep. So everybody's yawning. So it's not socially unacceptable. You could be in a stressful situation, whether it's a work environment or in the court environment. And you can be yawning, and it's not, the judge isn't going to say, hey, knock that off, right? Or hopefully your employer, your, HR person isn't going to say, hey, knock that off. It's something you can do to offload that stress that is unobtrusive. It's not, drawing attention to you. And it's like a little secret weapon. It's just take the edge off, take the edge off. So,
It's again, it's releasing the tension, that valve release.
well, yeah, if you think about it, when you said that the first time, the thing that came to my mind was a steam cooker.
Right.
Right. And how it's got the vent to let the steam out. So when we do that on a regular basis, if we say that this is my stress bucket and it's almost all the way full of stress, say, and there's only a teeny tiny bit of room for relaxation, comfort, joy. Well, if we empty it out through the day, so as the stress starts coming up and we empty it out and it comes up and we empty it out, that's how we find that balance. That's how we are able to respond instead of react. When instead we try and power through the day and we try and make it look good because, I did this, not in a work situation, but the health challenges that we went through with Michael, all those years ago. And I was falling apart on the inside, but I'm telling everybody, well, fine. I was anything but fine. And HR people, your employees who are going through a divorce might be saying, I'm fine. This is when one of my favorite phrases to say over the years is, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So that's like one of the best things I can say for the HR people is when your employees who are going through a divorce are coming in and they are stressed out and anxious and they're, sleep deprived, see if you can listen. Just listen. Like, just listen. And it's hard, especially, we want to get into fix it mode and jump in. But when we can simply listen, and if that's hard for you, then listen while you focus on your breath, right? Just, mhm. And that's tough. But when, again, going back to HR people putting the oxygen mask on first, when you're taking care of yourself, you're better able to take care of your employees who are in distress.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap this up, I want to see if you've got one more tip that you can share, whether that's for the HR manager or for the employee. And then I want to talk, we'll wrap this up with how important this is for employers and what this can do to the staff. So give us one more, and then we'll talk about why
Do you have a water bottle?
bring this
Do
in.
you have a water bottle, or do you have an open glass?
I have an open glass.
Okay. Do you have something that is not spillable? Something you can just
Yeah, I can't do that, but that's okay. But I can
That's
have
all right. No, because no, don't use your phone. Don't use your phone. That's the last thing I want you to do. Okay. Put your hands in front of your heart and swing one hand out and bring it back, other hand out and bring it back, and keep doing this. And I'll share what you love. I'll share the science behind it, right? Because it's like, all right, there's a reason for this. This is called crossing the midline. And obviously, we're crossing the midline of the body. What's much more important is by doing this, we're crossing the midline of the brain. So we're activating both the left and the right sides of the brain and bringing balance to it. So we can do this so simply, right? I usually have a tennis ball to show, but most people don't have a tennis ball hanging around on their desks. But if I was to say, if I had started this saying, Vicki, think about something really stressful, give it a number from 1 to 10. And then we do this for just a short amount of time. I'll say, okay, now check in. Think about that same situation. What's that number now? It'll be dramatically lower.
Really?
Right? It's incredible how something this simple, because I talk about this in the book so much. Well, here's another one that looks so simple, but don't discard it, because the simple things are what works. So simple. So simple. Oh, excellent. Thank you, Benita. Thank you so much for joining us.
Right? I mean, it's crazy how something so simple like that can neurologically make a difference in the lives of everybody that tries these techniques.
Well,
So,
and that's why I get on my soapbox about it, because it's my life's work is to say, okay, this doesn't have to be hard. This can be simple.
and so what I want to recommend to anybody and everybody that's out there, consider bringing this to your employees as a way for them to manage their anxiety. If they had access to something like this on a regular basis and can talk to Stephanie on a regular basis, imagine what would happen to their anxiety. And so one more time, hold up your book so that everybody can know. The name is Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom by Stephanie D'Alfonso. I have 2 copies of it, and I highly recommend it to all of you. I am now going to put our SHRM conference, our SHRM CEUs in the link into our chat. So if you are a member of SHRM, please get your credits each and every month. We do these things. Next week, we're going to be talking, because this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We are going to be talking about mental health for your employees, making them better. Next week, we're going to be talking about rebuilding after the stress and grief and anger and resentment of divorce. So we're going to be talking about that next week with a gentleman by the name of Will Lamone. So if you have some opportunities next Thursday, join us here on LinkedIn Live as we try and help you help your employees get through it. And so lastly, Steph, I'm going to give them your website, ibringcalm.com, for anybody that wants to reach out.
Yeah. And if you go to that, what you get are 5 of the 35 techniques from my book. Free. Just put your email address in and you'll have 5 of the techniques to start playing with. And again, you don't even have to learn all 5. Pick 2 or 3 and practice, practice, practice. And then practice some more.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, everybody, for being and joining us today. If there is something that we can do to help your employees that are going through the trauma of a divorce, please let them know about us. Please reach out. We're happy to have a consultation with you to talk about what is going on behind the scenes, behind the employees that are struggling through a relationship breakup. So we look forward to helping you, and we'll see you next week. Stephanie, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Mwah!
Bye for now, everybody.